Question of the day. What inspires you? You know, for me, it's this. Right here, right now. This inspires me. Now, when I left teaching, after 13 years, I dove headfirst into launching this company, and I've enjoyed it immensely. I'm not going to pretend I have not. It's been a phenomenal time. Great ride. Best 6-7 months of my life. But here's the thing. All these series that I've done, all these tutorials, these picks videos, all these things that I've been producing and streaming, they're great, they're fun, they're good for clicks, they're good for follows, but they do not inspire me. They don't bring me that intrinsic value that makes me just feel so good inside after I've completed it. So I woke up one day and I'm like, Mitch, what inspires you? What is it that gets you going each and every day? It's the connection. For me, it's always been the connection. It's my connection to my followers, my connection to the listeners. Whether you're tuning in on podcast today, or you watching on YouTube, or you happen to hear this just through word of mouth, my connection with you as a listener is what inspires me. That is what I do this for. Without it, it's all worthless. It's all worthless. What is the point of all of this if ultimately I'm not able to connect with one person out there? The intrinsic value of doing a talk show is just off the charts. And I think that, down the road, I'll be able to invite on my friends again. I launched a podcast last May, and I had a bunch of different people I invited in from the industry. And we had some phenomenal talks, life-changing talks that actually sent me down on this path. Having these conversations with people and hearing their life stories, hearing what they want out of life, hearing what had impacted their life to the point where it sent them down a specific trajectory that landed them there in that moment, talking with me on that podcast about X, Y, and Z. That was a very inspiring experience for me. And hopefully, this platform will be an opportunity to bring those people back on, bring new people back on, and have different types of talks. And there will be a heavy emphasis on DFS, sports betting, fantasy, sports in general, dad life, and a lot of those life stories that we talked about with those previous guests. So I want you, sometime today, not right now, you got to listen to me. Don't stop listening. But I want you to ask yourself, what inspires you? Whatever it is, go hard. If you can identify it right away, go. Just go. Don't hesitate. Don't waste time. Just get after it. And if you're unsure, that's fine too. That's fine too. Try to find out what inspires you. Go down that path with vigor. Now, one of the cool parts about doing this podcast is that I can do whatever I want with it. But, in this industry, you got to be able to bring in money. And I had no way to make money with this podcast. I don't want to. My goal is not to have this generate clicks and traffic to my website. It's not going to send them to my betting site or my DFS site or fantasy football draft kits. And I don't want this to be that. I want this to be that connection. Again, this is the connection. But I needed a way to generate some type of money, some type of income for the time invested into this podcast. And there were a couple people that reached out and they were like, you know what, we'd like to help you with this. We think this is going to be pretty cool. So the first one, you can see it in the bottom of the screen right now if you're on YouTube, it's Prize Picks. These guys are great. Very generous, very kind, very supportive of what I'm trying to do here, which makes me incredibly happy. And they don't even know I'm doing this, but I wanted to show them my appreciation for them for giving me the opportunity to have this platform. So thank you, Prize Picks, for sponsoring today's episode. I need a solid support group to be able to do this without any income coming in. And Prize Picks stepped up and they're going to do that. So I think a really cool way to support Prize Picks, whom is supporting me and this endeavor, is to use the promo link down below in the description section. It says Prize Picks, some words. And then you click that and you use promo code DONUTS, DONUTS. And that is a really cool way to thank them for supporting me. And I think I'm going to try to work this into a few of these shows where some of these sponsors that have reached out and been like, we'll help you do this so you can do this show and not worry about making money. So thank you very much, Prize Picks. It's a very, very fun site. I have some other cool stuff worked in so that if you use this promo code, I'm going to give you a free month at Sparry. There are different ways where I'm going to make sure it's extremely valuable for you to use this promo. So down below, description section, use promo code Donuts. Thank you very much, Prize Picks. All right, let's dive into some sports talk, baby. This should be what it is. It is a sports show. Donuts Talk Sports. Let's go. Oh, yeah, baby. It is baseball season. I'm jacked up as a DFS player, a sports bettor, and just a baseball fan. And if you've been playing NBA DFS, any type of fantasy basketball, it has been a wretched last 6 weeks between teams having issues with COVID, injury-riddled rosters, teams trading away player after player. It has been just disgusting. It's been disgusting. It's been a really tough time to be an NBA betting fan or an NBA daily fantasy fan because, NBA is often one of those sports that a lot of people look at and they say to themselves, this is where I make my money. I love NBA. NBA DFS is the best. But it has been a very turbulent 6 weeks of NBA DFS. Utter chaos. Utter chaos. Seemingly every single night there's 2 or 3 blowouts. You have teams where 2-3 starters are ruled out nightly, and then just uber chalk on 4 or 5 bench players who are thrust into 30-plus minute roles. And it's just been, you're stepping on landmine after landmine nightly. And you want to say in situations like that, you play a bunch of cash games, and you'll be okay. Just play cash. Don't worry about tournaments. But then in cash games, you're seeing literally 8 out of 9 spots have the same player, and it comes down to a 1v1. That's not fun. That's not fun for the casual player. That's not even that fun for those people who have a lot of volume in there. They are not trying to put tons of money on the line with 1 or 2 players that are going to be the difference making. Not in a sport like NBA, I should say. Not for that type of sport. And for a while, for years, I argued that NBA truly was the second best product on TV. Of course, NFL is king. Number 1, NFL, baby, all the time, all year. It is the number 1 sport to follow, discuss, watch, research. But NBA was catching up for a while. But I think it's been a couple years since the NBA has been worth the time and energy it takes to watch, these regular season games day in and day out. It's a long season. And then the playoff product is a very long product. We're talking 6 to 8 weeks. I don't think it's number 2 anymore. And I think if it still is, the gap is closing. You have other really cool sports that are really coming on, like MMA. MMA blew up at the beginning of COVID because it was basically the only sport still going. We still had PGA for a little bit. We had a little bit of NASCAR for a while too. But MMA was by itself for, I believe, all of April and about half of May before PGA and NASCAR started coming back. And it was 2 months of a lot of very thirsty fans looking for something to root on, looking for something to put money on. And MMA was there. And the product is awesome. They do a great job with their product. They really do. And I think that if NBA can't figure something out here with some of their, the resting and their injuries, and I think the length of the season and too many back-to-backs and all sorts of issues with their scheduling, I think they're going to continue to suffer and struggle. And I like that they've got the play-in games this year and all that stuff with the playoffs. That's going to be a little bit more unique, and that will generate interest around playoff time. But still, the regular season is just too long. It's too much going on. And you have, their stars are all older stars, mid to late 30s. Even the guys that you think of as like the young stars, right? They've gotten older in front of our eyes without us even realizing. Steph Curry's like 32 all of a sudden. When did that happen? Right? So, you've got all these guys, LeBron James, he's 37, 38 years old. The next group of stars and studs, they're in their mid-20s. And if NBA doesn't prepare to showcase them in a more efficient way going forward, they're gonna absolutely lose a fair portion of the next generation of NBA fans. I really think so. I think I think the product just has to do something drastic to change itself, much like MLB. But I tell you what, for me, as a dad, the MLB product, I love it now. I love it. For years, did not like MLB. Was just done with it. It's too slow, too old, too boring. DFS, I guess so. Fantasy baseball, sure, it's fun. But over the last several years, as I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, I love MLB DFS. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think MLB DFS is like the best sport annually to make money. Truly. And I see it. I see it all the time right now in my company, teamriseorfall.com. My members, my staff, everybody's crushing. And they're crushing because the projections are solid, research is solid, picks are solid. And it's like this at the beginning of virtually every single sport if you're paying attention. First half of NBA, balled out until about March. NFL, balled out till like week 10. And then half the industry evaporates and all you have left is everybody in the know. And you're just duking it out. And it's tough. Anybody struggling in NBA right now, switch over to MLB, man. Now's the time. Now is the time. It's the beginning of the season. It's the softest it'll ever be. One thing I want to say for you people who might switch after this little segment here, don't focus too much on statistics. Truly, it's a nice money-making opportunity, MLB DFS. But one mistake I've seen for years, and I did it myself for a few years as well, was focusing on statistics way too much. Now, I'm not saying stats do not matter in MLB. They certainly do. It's a game of splits, home splits, day splits, night splits, away splits. Splits versus right-handed pitcher and left-handed pitchers. Batter versus pitcher history, the BVP if you believe in that. The list goes on. Splits for everything. Splits for everything. And these splits matter. These stats matter. But they should only matter in certain scopes. All right? The way you look at them and the way you use them matters. It's not so much the stat itself. It's what you do with the stats. So I'm going to paint you a quick picture. And this is a conversation I've had for probably a good year or so every once in a while on my streams. And I've never really put it out there in a video. But I think it matters. Let's say you have a projection set that you trust. You love it. And you're like, this is it. I can win with Team Rise or Fall. This is my home, baby. I love okay, you do great. 5, 6 days, you're smashing. I mean, I've seen members, 3 or 4 different members who have won like 1K or more for, like 2 to 3 of those 4 days. It's been phenomenal for a few of these players. They're very hot. My concern always is this, that they feel confident and they're like, I got this figured out. I know how to play in MLB DFS. I'm going to go do research. And they dive into the research, and they start researching to them, till all hours of the night, trying to look at splits. They're looking at, last 50 plate appearances against right-handed pitchers, and they start worrying about all sorts of different things, and they're looking up all sorts of stats for the pitcher versus the hitters, and hitters versus that pitcher. And, you kind of lose sight of what matters the most in the first place. Number one, stats do matter. And all of those stats are incorporated into the model from which you used those projections to win that money. So then after you win all that money, if you go back through and you're like, well, now I'm going to target only hitters with over a 400 WOBA against right-handed pitchers. Well, now you've just weighted WOBA for batters against right-handed pitchers in the model, which has already been accounted for in those projections that you already used to win that money. So why would you then weight things heavier after you already have a projection set that's working? And this bias just ruins hot streaks. And I see it all the time, and it's really hard not to because people are, it's by nature, we're just very controlling. But once you have good projections, once you have a quality process, and you have something working for you, don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. And if you're struggling, I don't think the way is to go through and just research, burn the midnight oil researching and then end up, just all over the map because you try to do way too much. You got to find a way to make your process easier. You need to find a way to look at some of the data but in certain scopes. Well, if I'm putting together a stack, maybe I do look at the splits next to the projections because I want to see, well, not only a projection is good, but how good are the splits versus the other team, all right? So you have two teams you love. You want to stack them both up. One of the teams has great projections and great splits. The other team, great projections. Splits are okay. Maybe they're just a bunch of really good hitters. So the projection stays nice. Okay, there's a differentiator. There's something you can lean on. All right, I'll take the team with a similar projection, better splits over the last 50 at-bats against that pitcher's handedness. Go ahead, use them. So I think it depends on how you use those statistics. And this applies for everything. I mean, when you're playing NBA DFS and you're looking at two teams, you're like, oh man, look at this, implied team total, 122 points, phenomenal, 12 points higher than their team average. And then you look at the projections, you love them. Okay, cool. So you're ready to start building lineups. Then you're like, well, hold on. Let me go look at their pace of play. And you go look at the pace. Oh, wow, massive pace up spot. Huge pace up spot, +9. So then you're weighting the pace of play, which, my friends, a good projection model should have already weighted. And now you're saying, I need these guys because of the pace of play. It's already in the projections, man. Statistics matter, but only to help you make those final choices, not to make all of them. Comparing one guy versus one guy, okay, go ahead. Look at some stats. And truly, that's just something you learn through making mistakes. And I've made so many. I've been playing since 2013. 2013. I've made many mistakes. I was a losing player for a few years. Absolutely. It's been a few years since I've had a losing season now. That's good. But it's because I made a million mistakes to get to where I am. So many. And that was one of them. I used to be the guy on Twitter giving out, a bunch of free statistics. I used to do videos on researching, and I wrote research articles all over the industry for every sport under the sun. But stats are only part of it. Ultimately, when you're building your lineups, you need a good projection set. You need solid ownership projections. Go from there. You don't even need to know who the player is. You don't need to watch them swing a bat. I truly don't think so. I think you gather your puzzle pieces, then you put your puzzle together. Everything else outside of that, just going to be something that seeps in as bias. I hope you enjoyed today's first episode. The first episode. Thanks again, sponsor, Prize Picks. Appreciate you doing this for me, which allows me to do something that inspires me. And I hope that my followers go to the description section, they grab your link, and they support you for being a huge supporter of mine. So thank you very much. And to the followers and the listeners out there, truly, I hope the one takeaway today is not any of the DFS or sports talk or anything like that. I hope you ask yourself that question of the day, because we're going to lead off with the question of the day each episode. So I want you to find what inspires you. Whatever that is, figure it out, grab hold of it, and run. If it inspires you, it's worth your time, your energy, and your investment. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. It means the world to me. And I hope that over the next several episodes and years following that we're able to connect on different levels, not just through sports and betting and DFS, that we're able to connect in a different way. And, truly that will be my inspiration, and I will never stop trying to make it happen. Take care, my friends. I'll see you on the inside.